would acknowledge that that stabbing was after the shooting, according to you, right?
I don't remember.
I'm not asking you if you remember, ma'am. I'm asking if you acknowledge that it would be you that did it, correct?
Yes.
So if he is being stabbed in the back, would you acknowledge at that point that he's no threat to you, right?
I don't know.
Well, if he's already been shot, according to you, and he's facing away from you, how could he possibly be any threat to you?
I could only guess. I don't know what you're asking me.
Jodi's claim of self-defense was being whittled away.
Would you agree that you're the person who actually slit Mr. Alexander's throat from ear to ear?
Yes.
Would you also agree that you're the individual that stabbed him in the upper torso?
Yes.
And you're doing all of this according to your version of events. You're doing this to this individual after you have already shot him, right?
Yes.
Jodi initially tried to lie her way out of this jam, but was she now trying to cry her way out of it on the witness stand?
She's manipulative, she's cunning, and I suspect she can be extremely seductive.
Forensic psychiatrist Stephen Pitt, who's familiar with the case but who's not examined Jodi Arias, sees a woman good at manipulating others, but not so good with being rejected.
I saw her diagnosed by the prosecution's expert witness as having borderline personality disorder. What does that mean?
What could be the understatement of this particular case, they do not do real well with rejection or abandonment. Jodi Arias is essentially the 21st century version of the character that Glenn Close played in Fatal Attraction.
If there was any time during the trial when jurors tipped their hand about how they felt about Jodi Arias, it came over the course of 2 days when they questioned her directly. Arizona is one state where jurors can actually ask questions of the defendant. The judge reads them.
Did police ever find your grandfather's gun?
While the tone was not as biting as that of the prosecutor, those jury questions were overwhelmingly full of skepticism and disbelief.
Why did you place Travis's body back in the shower? Why not just tell the police the truth from the start? After all the lies you have told, why should we believe you now?
The lies that I've told in this case can be tied directly back to either protecting Travis's reputation or my involvement in his death in any way, because I was very ashamed.
And that's what this would all boil down to. All of Jodi's lies.
She was a chameleon. She read people really well, and she would adapt to whatever situation she was in.
Jodi's old friend Aaron Dewey.
She would reflect back to you whatever it was that you wanted to hear, whoever it was that you wanted her to be.
Jodi Arias spent 18 days on the stand, an almost unheard of stint for a defendant in any murder trial. But was that part of the defense's grand strategy? Keep Jodi on the stand so long that jurors would never vote to execute someone they'd gotten to know so well, in such intimate detail. Phoenix criminal defense attorney Ulysses Farragut has been following the Arias case.
I think that was the defense strategy. The longer we keep her on the stand, the more they hear from her. They will hopefully ingratiate themselves with her to a certain extent and hopefully spare her life.
Jurors had 4 months to think about all the questions. Just 2 days ago, they came up with the answers. And a verdict. As the end neared, the spectacle that was the Jodi Arias trial spilled out of the courtroom and off the flat screens and onto the street.
Did you killed Travis Alexander.
This trial started with Jodi Arias admitting she killed Travis Alexander. And yet she testified in her own defense for weeks, as if she still thought she could talk her way out of trouble.
You saw her crying on the witness stand, and anybody debate the reason she was crying is because she cries for herself.
If there was one point Juan Martinez wanted to drive home in his closing arguments to the jury,
she's such an ornate liar.
It was that Jodi Arias had spent the last 4 months running a con on them.
Are you going to buy her lies? Are you going to believe what she tells you?
In his summation, defense lawyer Kirk Nurmi didn't ask for an acquittal. Even he seemed to acknowledge that jurors were likely to convict Jodi of something.
If Miss Arias is guilty of any crime at all, it is the crime of manslaughter and nothing more.
And he pointedly reminded the jury that this wasn't a reality show, that their decision shouldn't be about whether they approve of the woman whose sexual escapades have been part of their daily routine for 4 months.
9 days out of 10, I don't like Jodi Arias.
It was a phrase that resonated, if not with the jury, then certainly with his client, who responded via Twitter, 9 days out of 10? That sounds about right. If you think it's strange that a murder defendant would laugh it up via social media, even while a jury deliberates her fate, then you don't know Jodi Arias. But of course, that was kind of the issue throughout this trial. Who was she?
I don't know.
Look closely at Jodi during cross-examination. No matter how much she sobs, while strategically perhaps covering her face, there seem to be no teardrops falling from her eyes. Forensic psychiatrist Stephen Pitt is struck by Jodi's ability to lie with confidence.
That's a terrific sociopathic skill. She's able to tell a lie, she believes the lie, and she's narcissistic enough and entitled enough to believe that she's so good that she's going to pull the wool over someone else.
If that's true, this jury didn't fall for it in their assessment of Jodi's state of mind.
Ladies and gentlemen, I understand you have reached a verdict.
Their judgment? That it was premeditated.
We, the jury, do find the defendant as to count 1, first-degree murder, guilty.
Outside, the crowd erupted in cheers.
Justice for Travis!
Inside, a much different mood. Jodi Arias sat in silence as each juror was individually polled. This time, her tears were definitely real. And while Travis's family quietly cried and hugged, his old friend Dave Hall took to the courthouse steps.
I'm just glad that the jury realized Jodi is a pathological liar and gave her what she deserves.
While Travis's friends were relieved Jodi will be held accountable, they also held fast to their Mormon faith.
I'm required to forgive her. It's going to take me some time.
Forgiveness will come, but it has nothing whatsoever to do with her. It has to do with me.
I feel like I've forgiven Jodi, but along with that, I'm grateful that justice was served today.
And just after her conviction, the rarely silent Jodi made clear what kind of punishment she'd like to receive in an interview with Phoenix TV station KSAZ.
I believe death is the ultimate freedom, so I'd rather just have my freedom as soon as I can get it.
After those words, the sheriff's department announced it was placing Jodi on suicide watch. Her family members left the jail that night in stunned silence. And the next phase of Jodi's murder trial, to determine if the level of brutality met Arizona's death penalty standards, was unexpectedly postponed until next week. No explanation, although the Maricopa County Sheriff's Office confirmed Jodi had been transferred to a jailhouse psych ward indefinitely. And Jodi's wisecracks on Twitter have ended, her account taken down. Maybe reality has finally hit Jodi Arias, that after being the center of attention for so long, her show is finally coming to an end.